Hi, I'm Marla Folden, and I'm a speech language pathologist at the Down Syndrome Resource Foundation in Burnaby in BC in Canada. In this video, we're going to talk about one of the common sort of like pitfalls that we run into when we're doing speech language therapy with families, and it is by nobody's fault ever. And that is the use of questions to get your child to talk versus using comments to get your child to talk. So let's take a quick look here. The big point that I'm trying to make is that questions are a way to test your child, but comments are a teaching tool. And in therapy, we want to teach the child new things 95% of the time. About 5% of the time, we want to test them and see what they know already. Mostly, we're really focused in on teaching. So let's think about that. What does a child learn by answering questions? The short answer to that is nothing. Answering questions is really for showing what you already know. And when families ask a lot of questions of the child, I understand this impulse completely. What they want to have happen is the child to really show the therapist what they're capable of doing. And sometimes it comes from curiosity too, that parents themselves wonder, I don't know, does the child know this or not? And they want to find out if the child knows something. But we kind of need to refrain from this impulse because it's not teaching our child anything new. And in fact, it can kind of put them on the spot and make them less likely to engage with us. So let's look at the other side of the coin. What can a child learn through comments? Number one big thing is they're going to learn more vocabulary. By you saying the new words and not assessing whether they know them already, the child gets a chance to hear those words with a reference for what it refers to. And in this way, they learn new vocabulary. A child can also learn how to combine words, and this might be phrases or sentences. And by you modeling, big dog, that is a big dog. The child gets a sense of what that sounds like and what it can refer to. And children learn sentences by imitating these kind of things. Another thing that children learn through comments is cognitive concepts. These are things like size relationships, comparing and contrasting, right? Those kind of things are learned when people around them explain these concepts. Children also learn reading comprehension skills. So the relationships between characters, what's happening first and then, cause and effect, problem and solution, how to describe things. This is learned by commenting on what you see in a book, not by asking a child questions about what's in a book. The last thing, and it's a really big one, is children learn to share enjoyment in activities with adults when the adult is commenting versus questioning the child. And we really want our students to enjoy spending time with us. This makes it more likely that they're going to want to keep coming back and keep learning from us, and also to keep participating with you, the family member or teacher, when they enjoy the activity with you, as opposed to feeling like, oh my gosh, I have to answer all these questions, right? So that's sort of why, from a theoretical perspective, we would lean more towards comments and lean away from questions. We will get into the right time to use questions in a little bit. I wanted to give some examples here. So this one is playing a game. This is actually here at our office. And on the left side, we can see a lot of questions. What's next? Where does it go? Do you like it? Do you not like it? All these kind of things. The child's not going to relearn the words for what the activity has, how he can describe it, what he can say while he's playing this activity, if all he gets to do is try and answer questions. So this is the kind of thing that we want to avoid. And you know what? It's kind of automatic. A lot of people do it, and I have to stop myself from doing it too, and I'm trained in this. So, don't feel bad if you hear a lot of questions coming out of your mouth. The first step is to really notice that it's happening. We want to try and avoid these kind of things. Instead, we want to go more towards this other side of commenting, like, oh, another banana. If you're feeding that little munchy ball some little cute fruits, ooh, one more, put it in, munch, munch. And what you're doing here is giving the student the opportunity to imitate you and describe what they're playing. And, that would be great. If they imitate you, we also know that they understand what's happening in the activity, as opposed to needing to ask a question to find that information out. Let's cruise up here. This is the place where questions crop up the most. So this is like reading a book together, again, at our office. And this is the number one thing that we hear. And it's, like I said, it's nobody's fault that people ask this question all the time. What's that? You know, if you're pointing around in a book, what's that? What's that? What's this? What's that? And it starts to feel like a big test. What do you see? Where's the snowman? Where's the Santa? Lots of those kind of questions. And if a student can't answer those kinds of questions, you increase the likelihood that they're going to really shut down and not want to participate with you. So instead of doing this kind of thing, which we kind of want to avoid, we are going to hop over here and look at the commenting instead. So when you're reading a book with a student, these are the things we want to say. Oh, I see Santa. Oh, I see the tree. Oh, a reindeer. I like reindeer, right? You're giving all this great modeling to show a student what they could say about a book, right? And then you can, this is where the reading comprehension-y stuff comes in. You can even talk about like, oh, first the tree fell down and then the reindeer had to jump, right? So you're describing what you're seeing and giving the student vocabulary to talk about the relationships that are happening in the book, the cognitive concepts, that kind of thing. Now, I don't want to make it seem like we never ever use question words, because obviously we do and we should. There's a time and place for question words. So let's think about that. When can we use these question words? The number one time is when we are explicitly teaching what question words mean. And for students with Down syndrome, this area does need to be explicitly taught. There's a lot of reasons for this. One, the question words kind of all sound the same and they get really easily confused for our students. So we need to teach them one at a time, right? Very explicitly. Who refers to people? What refers to things? That kind of a deal. So we're going to model question words a ton when we're in the process of teaching what they mean, right? Ideally, this is going to have two adults involved so that when you, parent, teacher, or therapist, ask questions and model how it works in a question, another adult can answer that question as opposed to putting the pressure on the child. Now, you can use a puppet or you can do it yourself as well. Like, who's that? And you get your little puppet guy to say, that's my friend, right? And model how you would answer a who question or a what question, that kind of thing, right? So this first step in explicitly teaching the question words and making sure that your student understands them has to happen before you can even use question words in an assessment, right? Because if you are asking who and what and where and when questions in an assessment and your student is getting it wrong, you don't know if they actually don't know the answer to the question or they just don't know what the question word means. So first, we explicitly teach what the question words mean, and then we apply it to assessments. And this would be things like assessing how much a child understands from a book, or assessing how much a child understands in math or in literature, any other subject at school, or anything that you kind of want to get a measure of at home or in therapy. The third and final time that we make great use of question words is when we're working on higher level chatting and conversation skills. Again, the student needs to know what the question words mean before we can really get into applying them in conversation. So we might use visual supports and things like that to really keep those question words clear for a student while we're working on chatting and using those longer sentences and the sort of back and forth that conversation involves. Okay, so I hope this kind of makes clear why we avoid testing our students. And by testing, I mean asking lots of questions while we're playing and engaging in activities with them, and why we really heavily lean towards lots of comments, lots of describing, and using that as our primary strategy. Now, I understand that families sometimes can feel like my kid doesn't do their best at therapy. I get that. And when you really want your student to, or your child, to show what they're capable of in an unfamiliar environment, it's a lot of pressure on a family, and they get into this like, oh, I know my kid knows this. I know they can do this. I know they can do better than what they're showing right now. So to take the pressure off of you as a family member or teacher, I really highly recommend you make some videos of your kid doing their best at home. I guarantee you, your therapist is going to want to see those anyway. So if you can set up your phone or your iPad or whatever and just make a video of how you're doing things at home, and the kinds of things that your child is saying on their own independently, your therapist really wants to see all of that, and it'll make you feel better, take the pressure off when you're in session to like sort of prove what your kid is capable of, right? So that's my kind of number one strategy if you're noticing a real mismatch between what's happening at home and what's happening in therapy. Okay, all right, I hope this has been helpful for you, and I'll see you soon for another video.